This is Bible Stories for Sleep. For thousands of years, the stories of Scripture have been a place of refuge, a sanctuary for the weary mind. Tonight that sanctuary opens through Paul in Corinth. If you find rest here, a quick subscribe helps us keep these stories coming. Now set aside what you are carrying, trust that tomorrow is in good hands, and let your mind grow still. The sun, a brazen eye in the cerulean sky, beat down upon the Isthmus of Corinth, baking the dust of the roads and shimmering off the marble facades of the city's grandest structures. It was the year of our Lord 50 AD, or perhaps 51, a time when the Roman Empire, like a colossal, slumbering beast, stretched its vast limbs across the known world, and Corinth, a jewel nestled between two seas, pulsed with the very lifeblood of that empire. Here, the Aegean met the Ionian, and the winds carried the scent of distant lands, myrrh from Arabia, spices from the east, and the briny tang of the Mediterranean itself. The city, a crucible of cultures and commerce, never truly slept, its rhythm a ceaseless symphony of human endeavor. From the twin ports of Lycaon and Centria, ships arrived daily, their sails furled, their holds disgorging treasures and burdens alike. The air in the agora, the city's bustling marketplace, was thick with the cacophony of trade, the guttural shouts of merchants hawking their wares, the clatter of amphorae, the bleating of goats, and the ceaseless murmur of a dozen languages mingling into a singular, vibrant hum. Silks from Ansh, grain from Egypt, pottery from Athens, and even exotic animals from Africa found their way to these stalls, each transaction a tiny thread woven into the vast tapestry of Roman commerce. Above it all, the imposing architecture of Roman public buildings, with their fluted columns and intricate carvings, stood in stark contrast to the more humble dwellings that clung to the hillsides, a testament to the city's wealth and its imperial masters. And ever present, overlooking the entire panorama, the Temple of Aphrodite, perched high on the Acra Corinth, cast its long, silent shadow, a potent symbol of the city's prevailing pagan devotions. In a quieter, though no less industrious, corner of this vibrant metropolis, nestled amidst a labyrinth of narrow streets, stood a modest workshop. Here, the air was heavy with the earthy scent of cured leather, the sharp tang of goat hair silicium, and the faint, metallic aroma of tools. This was the domain of Priscilla and Aquila, two souls who had found themselves in Corinth not by choice, but by the capricious decree of an emperor. Priscilla, with her hands calloused from years of working with tough materials and her eyes holding the quiet wisdom of one who had seen much of the world, meticulously stitched a seam on a large piece of dark, woven fabric. The needle, a slender glint of silver, danced through the coarse goat hair, her movements precise and practiced. She was a woman of substance, her presence commanding a quiet respect even in the bustling anonymity of a Roman colony. Her dark hair, streaked with threads of silver, was neatly bound, and her simple tunic, though practical for her trade, spoke of an underlying elegance. She might have been born to a life of ease, perhaps even to the Roman aristocracy, as some whisper, scourging treasures and burdens alike. The air in the agora, the city's bustling marketplace, was thick with the cacophony of trade, the guttural shouts of merchants hawking their wares, the clatter of amphorae, the bleating of goats, and the ceaseless murmur of a dozen languages mingling into a singular, vibrant hum. Silks from Ansh, grain from Egypt, pottery from Athens, and even exotic animals from Africa found their way to these stalls, each transaction a tiny thread woven into the vast tapestry of Roman commerce. Above it all, the imposing architecture of Roman public buildings, with their fluted columns and intricate carvings, stood in stark contrast to the more humble dwellings that clung to the hillsides, a testament to the city's wealth and its imperial masters. And ever present, overlooking the entire panorama, the Temple of Aphrodite, perched high on the Acra Corinth, cast its long, silent shadow, a potent symbol of the city's prevailing pagan devotions. In a quieter, though no less industrious, corner of this vibrant metropolis, nestled amidst a labyrinth of narrow streets, stood a modest workshop. Here, the air was heavy with the earthy scent of cured leather, the sharp tang of goat hair silicium, and the faint, metallic aroma of tools. This was the domain of Priscilla and Aquila, two souls who had found themselves in Corinth not by choice, but by the capricious decree of an emperor. Priscilla, with her hands calloused from years of working with tough materials and her eyes holding the quiet wisdom of one who had seen much of the world, meticulously stitched a seam on a large piece of dark, woven fabric. The needle, a slender glint of silver, danced through the coarse goat hair, her movements precise and practiced. She was a woman of substance, her presence commanding a quiet respect even in the bustling anonymity of a Roman colony. Her dark hair, streaked with threads of silver, was neatly bound, and her simple tunic, though practical for her trade, spoke of an underlying elegance. She might have been born to a life of ease, perhaps even to the Roman aristocracy, as some whispered, but circumstance had forged her into a resilient artisan, a businesswoman, and a steadfast pillar of a nascent faith. She remembered, with a pang that still resonated in her heart, the day the edict had come down from Emperor Claudius in Rome. All Jews were to be expelled from the city. The suddenness of it, the injustice, had been a bitter pill. One moment, they were established, respected members of their community in the heart of the empire. The next, they were refugees, their lives uprooted, their future uncertain. Yet, even in that moment of profound displacement, Priscilla had felt a strange sense of purpose, a conviction that God's hand was guiding them, even through the wilderness of exile. She had looked at Aquila, her steadfast husband, and together they had packed what they could, leaving behind the familiar comforts of their Roman home for the unknown shores of Greece. Aquila, a man whose strength was evident in the broadness of his shoulders and the steady gaze of his dark eyes, worked beside her, his movements economical and strong as he stretched a large piece of canvas over a wooden frame. He was from Pontus, a region far to the north, and his skill as a tent-maker was renowned. His brow was furrowed in concentration, but a faint, contented hum often escaped his lips as he worked, a quiet testament to his deep satisfaction in honest labor. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes of loyalty, of dedication, and of an unwavering faith that anchored him amidst the swirling currents of their uncertain world. He too carried the memory of Rome's expulsion, a memory that had sharpened his resolve rather than embittered him. He had always been a practical man, grounded in the realities of his trade, and the sudden upheaval had only reinforced his belief in self-sufficiency. God provided, yes, but often through the diligent work of human hands. He watched Priscilla, her profile illuminated by the shafts of sunlight filtering through the workshop's open doorway, and a warmth spread through him. She was his rock, his partner in every sense of the word, in their trade, in their travels, and most profoundly, in their shared devotion to the Nazarene. Their workshop, though humble, was a hive of quiet industry. Finished tents, rolled tightly and secured with leather straps, leaned against one wall, awaiting transport to the docks or the market. Pieces of raw goat hair fabric, imported from Cilicia, lay stacked in another corner, their rough texture a promise of future shelters. Tools of their trade, awls, mallets, heavy shears, and spools of strong linen thread were meticulously arranged on a workbench, each in its appointed place, reflecting the order and discipline that governed their lives. The sounds from outside, the distant shouts from the agora, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the occasional bray of a donkey, all filtered into the workshop, a constant reminder of the bustling city that surrounded them. Yet, within these walls, there was a sanctuary of sorts, a place where the clamor of the world receded, replaced by the rhythmic whisper of needle through fabric, the gentle thud of a mallet, and the quiet, shared breaths of two people working in harmonious purpose. Priscilla paused her stitching for a moment, her gaze drifting towards the open doorway. A young boy, his face smudged with dirt, darted past, chasing a stray dog, their laughter and barks momentarily piercing the workshop's calm. She smiled faintly, a wistful expression touching her lips. Corinth was not Rome, but it had become their home, a place where they had rebuilt their lives, not just as tent makers, but as something more profound. Their home, a few steps away from the workshop, had become a haven for others, a gathering place for those who shared their new faith, a nascent church blossoming quietly amidst the pagan grandeur of the city. Every Sabbath, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of fiery orange and soft lavender, Paul would leave the quiet industry of his workshop and step into the vibrant, often contentious, arena of public discourse. The synagogue, though modest in comparison to the grand Roman temples that dominated the city's skyline, held a unique power, a gravitational pull for those who sought spiritual truth beyond the fleeting pleasures and myriad gods of Corinth. Within its walls, the sacred scrolls were unrolled, and the ancient prophecies, rich with the promise of a Messiah, were read aloud, their words echoing through the hushed assembly, stirring hopes and expectations that had spanned generations. Paul, with a scholar's precision and a prophet's fervor, would then rise to speak, his voice, though not naturally booming, carrying an undeniable authority that commanded attention. He would meticulously unweave the threads of prophecy, demonstrating with irrefutable logic how each strand pointed directly to Jesus of Nazareth, not as a mere teacher or a charismatic leader, but as the long-awaited Christ, the very Son of God, whose death and resurrection had fulfilled every ancient promise. He spoke of a new covenant, not etched in stone, but written on the heart, a message of salvation freely offered to all, Jew and Gentile alike, through faith in this crucified and risen Lord. For weeks, his arguments resonated, drawing in a growing number of listeners, some captivated by the sheer intellectual force of his reasoning, others moved by the profound spiritual hunger his words awakened within them. Among the most attentive listeners was Crispus, the respected ruler of the synagogue, a man whose very presence commanded deference and whose judgment carried considerable weight within the Jewish community. Crispus was a man of deep piety and unwavering commitment to the traditions of his fathers, his days marked by careful study of the Torah and diligent observance of the law. He sat in the synagogue's most prominent seat, his gaze often fixed on Paul, a complex mixture of intellectual curiosity, cautious skepticism, and an almost imperceptible spiritual yearning playing across his features. He observed the apostle's passionate delivery, the way Paul's eyes would light up with conviction, and the quiet, yet profound, impact his words had on the diverse congregation. Crispus had witnessed the ebb and flow of many teachers and their doctrines, but there was something different about Paul, a raw authenticity and an unshakable conviction that set him apart. The apostle's message, however, was a double-edged sword, a source of both profound inspiration and growing contention. While some, particularly the God-fearing Gentiles who frequented the synagogue, found themselves drawn irresistibly to the universality of Paul's message, embracing the idea of a God who welcomed all, many among the Jewish community viewed his teachings with increasing suspicion, then outright hostility. They saw his interpretation of the law as a dangerous deviation, his proclamation of a crucified Messiah as blasphemy, and his outreach to Gentiles without requiring full conversion to Judaism as an affront to their sacred heritage. Whispers of discontent began to circulate, hushed at first, then growing louder, like a gathering storm. They spoke of Paul as a troublemaker, a disturber of the peace, a man who sought to dismantle the very foundations of their faith. The tension within the synagogue became palpable, a thick, suffocating atmosphere that grew heavier with each passing Sabbath. The debates became more heated, the arguments sharper, and the expressions on the faces of the elders grew increasingly stern. Paul, ever resolute, met their opposition with unwavering patience and an unshakable conviction, his voice remaining calm even as the accusations grew more venomous. He understood the deep-seated traditions, the centuries of expectation, and the profound cultural identity intertwined with the law, but he also understood the liberating power of the gospel, a truth he believed was meant to transcend all such boundaries. One Sabbath, after Paul had delivered a particularly impassioned sermon, laying bare the spiritual bankruptcy of relying solely on the law for salvation, a wave of open hostility erupted. Voices rose in angry protest, accusing him of distorting the scriptures, of leading people astray, of undermining the very covenant God had made with their ancestors. The air crackled with animosity, and the scent of incense, usually a calming presence, now seemed to mingle with the acrid tang of rising anger. Paul stood his ground, his gaze sweeping across the agitated faces, his heart aching for their blindness, yet firm in his resolve. He knew this moment was inevitable, a necessary turning point. With a heavy sigh, a profound sorrow etched on his face, Paul finally declared, "Since you reject it and do not consider yourselves worthy of eternal life, we now turn to the Gentiles." His words, though delivered with a quiet solemnity, landed like a thunderclap, echoing through the synagogue and sending a shockwave through the assembly. It was a declaration of spiritual redirection, a painful but necessary severing of ties, a recognition that the path forward lay beyond the confines of their traditional understanding. He then shook out his clothes, a symbolic gesture of cleansing himself from their rejection, and departed from the synagogue, leaving behind a stunned silence that quickly gave way to renewed murmurs of outrage and confusion. From that day forward, Paul and his companions continued their ministry from the nearby house of Titius Justus, a God-fearing Gentile who had embraced the message with an open heart and offered his home as a new gathering place. This move was not a retreat, but a strategic repositioning, a clear signal that the message of Christ was not exclusive to one people or one place, but was indeed for all. the humble dwelling of Titius Justus quickly became a vibrant hub of activity, a place where the curious, the seeking, and the convicted could gather without fear of the synagogue's increasingly rigid scrutiny. It was during this period of transition, amidst the fervent discussions and the quiet teachings in Justus's home, that the most profound transformation began to unfold within Crispus. The ruler of the synagogue, a man whose life had been defined by tradition and adherence to the law, found himself increasingly unable to dismiss Paul's arguments. The apostle's words, though rejected by many of his peers, had burrowed deep into Crispus's heart, stirring a longing for a truth that felt more immediate, more personal, and more profoundly transformative than anything he had known. He had watched Paul's unwavering conviction, observed the genuine love and compassion he extended to all, and witnessed the undeniable power of the Holy Spirit at work through him. Crispus wrestled with his conscience, torn between the comfort of his established position, the respect of his community, and the compelling, almost irresistible, call of this new faith. The weight of his decision was immense, for to embrace Paul's message meant to forsake not only his prestigious role but potentially his entire way of life, risking ostracization and condemnation from those he had long led. He spent sleepless nights, the grand pronouncements of the Torah mingling in his mind with Paul's passionate declarations about grace and redemption. The scent of the oil lamp in his study, usually a source of comfort during his late-night meditations, now seemed to amplify his internal struggle, casting long, dancing shadows that mirrored the turmoil within his soul. Finally, after days of intense introspection and fervent prayer, Crispus made a courageous decision that sent ripples throughout the Jewish community in Corinth. He, Crispus, the respected ruler of the synagogue, declared his belief in the Lord Jesus Christ. His conversion was not a quiet, private affair, but a public, unequivocal act of faith. He, along with his entire household, embraced baptism, a symbolic washing away of the old and an embrace of the new. The news spread like wildfire, igniting further outrage among those who opposed Paul, but bringing immense joy and encouragement to the fledgling community of believers. Crispus's decision was a powerful affirmation, a testament to the transformative power of the Christian message, demonstrating that even the most deeply entrenched traditions could yield to the truth of the gospel. His conversion was a beacon, a visible sign that the message was indeed universal, capable of touching hearts from every walk of life, even those who had once stood in opposition. The departure of Paul from the synagogue and the subsequent conversion of Crispus left a void in the leadership, a vacuum that was quickly filled by Sosthenes. Sosthenes, a man of strong convictions and an unyielding adherence to traditional Jewish law, stepped into the role of synagogue leader, his heart burning with indignation at Paul's perceived heresies and the defection of Crispus. He saw Paul as a dangerous provocateur, a threat to the very fabric of their religious and cultural identity, and he resolved to put an end to the apostle's disruptive influence in Corinth. The atmosphere within the synagogue, already tense, now simmered with a more focused, aggressive animosity, directed squarely at Paul and his growing band of followers. Meanwhile, the work in Justus's house continued, a vibrant counterpoint to the rising opposition. Many Corinthians, both Jews and Greeks, hearing the message and witnessing the genuine love and community among the believers, came to faith and were baptized. The church in Corinth, though still young, was growing, its roots deepening in the fertile ground of open hearts and hungry souls. The sounds of prayer and teaching filled Justice's home, a melody of hope and new beginnings, a stark contrast to the angry denunciations emanating from the synagogue. Despite the burgeoning success, Paul carried a heavy burden of concern, a quiet anxiety that often settled upon him in the quiet hours of the night. The hostility from the synagogue was intensifying, and he knew from past experiences in other cities that such opposition could quickly escalate into open persecution. He had faced stoning, imprisonment, and countless threats, and the memory of those trials, though tempered by divine protection, remained a vivid reminder of the dangers inherent in proclaiming the gospel. The bustling city of Corinth, with its diverse populations and complex power dynamics, felt like a volatile crucible, capable of both remarkable transformation and sudden, violent backlash. He worried for the nascent community, for the new converts, and for the continued safety of Priscilla and Aquila, his steadfast companions. One night, as the city slept, its myriad sounds softened by the late hour, Paul found himself wrestling with these anxieties. The flickering light of an oil lamp cast long shadows across the walls of their small living quarters, making the familiar shapes of their tools and unfinished tent seem momentarily ominous. He knelt, his head bowed, seeking solace and guidance, his heart heavy with the weight of responsibility. He felt the immense pressure of the mission, the constant strain of opposition, and the deep yearning for the spiritual growth and protection of those he had come to serve. The air was thick with the scent of lamp oil and the faint, lingering aroma of leather, a grounding presence in his moment of profound contemplation. It was then, in the quiet solitude of that night, that a profound and deeply reassuring vision came to him. The Lord himself stood before Paul, not in a blinding flash of light, but in a gentle, yet utterly compelling presence that filled the small room with an unearthly peace. The Lord's voice, clear and resonant, spoke directly to Paul's anxious heart, cutting through the layers of doubt and fear that had begun to accumulate. "Do not be afraid, keep on speaking, do not be silent," the Lord commanded, his words a balm to Paul's troubled spirit. "For I am with you, and no one is going to attack and harm you, because I have many people in this city." The divine assurance washed over Paul like a soothing balm, dispelling the shadows of fear and replacing them with a renewed sense of purpose and an unshakable resolve. The Lord's words were not merely a comfort, but a direct command, a clear affirmation of his mission and a promise of divine protection. He understood that his work in Corinth was far from over, that despite the opposition, God had a profound plan for this vibrant, complex city. The vision instilled in him a fresh surge of courage, a deep conviction that he was not alone, and that the ultimate victory belonged to God. The weight that had pressed upon him lifted, replaced by a quiet strength and a renewed determination. From that night forward, Paul's resolve solidified, his preaching imbued with an even greater boldness and clarity. The divine assurance had quieted his fears, allowing him to face the escalating opposition with a serene confidence that baffled his adversaries. He knew, with an unshakable certainty, that he was under God's direct protection, and that his mission in Corinth was divinely ordained. He continued to teach and preach, not just for a few more weeks or months, but for a full 1 year and 6 months, pouring his heart and soul into nurturing the burgeoning community of believers, establishing them firmly in the faith, and guiding them through the complexities of living out their new convictions in a city steeped in paganism and worldly pursuits. During this extended period, the church flourished, growing not only in numbers but in spiritual maturity. Paul, with Priscilla and Aquila's unwavering support, diligently taught the Word of God, addressing the unique challenges and questions that arose within the diverse Corinthian congregation. He spoke of unity amidst cultural differences, of purity in a city renowned for its immorality, and of love as the defining characteristic of Christ's followers. The sound of their voices, teaching and encouraging, became a steady, comforting presence in Justus's house, a sanctuary of truth and grace amidst the city's relentless clamor. However, the relative peace and steady growth of the church were not destined to last indefinitely. The simmering resentment among the Jewish leaders, particularly Sosthenes, had been steadily reaching a boiling point. The continued success of Paul's ministry, the growing number of converts, and the perceived affront to their traditions became unbearable. Sosthenes, fueled by a potent mix of religious zeal and personal animosity, resolved to take decisive action. He would not allow Paul's teachings to further erode the foundations of their faith or to draw away more members of their community. He saw Paul not just as a theological opponent, but as a dangerous instigator, a threat to the established order. One day, with a calculated determination, Sosthenes gathered a group of like-minded Jews, their faces grim with resolve, and together they launched a concerted attack. They seized Paul, dragging him through the bustling streets of Corinth, past the grand Roman temples and the clamorous agora, their shouts and accusations drawing the attention of curious onlookers. The air, usually filled with the mundane sounds of commerce, now reverberated with the cries of indignation and the growing murmur of the crowd. Their destination was the proconsul's judgment seat, the Bema, a prominent platform in the heart of the city where official legal cases were read and justice, or at least Roman law, was dispensed. The proconsul of Achaia at that time was Gallio, a man known for his cultured intellect and his reputation for fairness, though he was also a brother of the renowned philosopher Seneca. He sat upon the Bema, an imposing figure in his official robes, his expression one of detached authority, as the agitated crowd surged around him. The sun, high in the sky, cast sharp shadows across the marble platform, highlighting the tension etched on the faces of the accusers and the calm, resolute demeanor of Paul. Sosthenes, stepping forward with an air of self-importance, began to present their case, his voice ringing with accusation. "This man," he declared, pointing an accusatory finger at Paul, "is persuading people to worship God in ways that are contrary to our law." The charge was carefully crafted, designed to appeal to Roman legal sensibilities, framing Paul's activities as a disruption of public order and a violation of established religious practices. They hoped to convince Gallio that Paul was not merely engaging in an internal Jewish dispute, but was actively subverting the peace and challenging Roman authority by promoting an illegal religion. Paul, standing quietly before the proconsul, waited patiently for Sosthenes to finish, his gaze steady and unwavering. He understood the gravity of the situation, the potential consequences of such an accusation before a Roman magistrate. Yet, the divine assurance given to him in the night remained a steadfast anchor in his soul, a quiet strength that emanated from him. He was prepared to defend himself, to articulate the truth of the gospel, to explain that his message was not a challenge to Roman law, but a spiritual truth that transcended earthly jurisdictions. However, before Paul could even open his mouth to offer his defense, Gallio, with a dismissive wave of his hand, interrupted the proceedings. The proconsul, a man of keen intellect and practical judgment, had quickly assessed the nature of the dispute. He recognized it for what it was, an internal squabble among the Jews, a matter of religious doctrine and interpretation, not a crime against Roman law or a threat to public order. He was not interested in adjudicating theological debates or settling sectarian grievances. With an air of weary impatience, Gallio addressed Sosthenes and the assembled accusers. If it were a matter of some wrongdoing or serious crime, you Jews, it would be reasonable for me to listen to you, he declared, his voice carrying clearly over the murmuring crowd. But since it involves questions about words and names and your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I will not be a judge of such things. His words were unequivocal, a clear refusal to become entangled in their religious disputes. With a final, decisive gesture, he ordered them to disperse, effectively dismissing the case and rebuffing the accusations against Paul. The proconsul's swift and decisive judgment sent a ripple of astonishment through the crowd. The Jewish accusers, particularly Sosthenes, were left stunned, their carefully constructed case crumbling before their eyes. Their plan to use Roman authority to silence Paul had backfired spectacularly. The public humiliation was immediate and profound. In the confusion and frustration that followed Gallio's dismissal, a new wave of emotion swept through the onlookers. Many of the Greeks present, perhaps resentful of the Jewish leaders' attempts to manipulate Roman law or simply frustrated by the disruption, turned their anger on Sosthenes. In a sudden, spontaneous outburst, they seized him, the very man who had spearheaded the accusation against Paul, and began to beat him right there, before the proconsul's judgment seat. The shouts of accusation turned into cries of pain, and the scene descended into a chaotic melee. Gallio, observing the unfolding violence, remained impassive, choosing not to intervene, perhaps seeing it as a fitting consequence for their unwarranted disruption of his court. Paul, witnessing the dramatic turn of events, remained calm amidst the chaos. The divine protection promised to him had manifested in a most unexpected way, not through a miraculous intervention of fire or a heavenly host, but through the pragmatic judgment of a Roman official and the volatile emotions of a public crowd. He understood that this incident, though violent, served as a powerful affirmation of his divine calling and a clear sign that his work in Corinth was indeed under God's sovereign hand. The episode, far from being a setback, had inadvertently granted Paul a measure of legal protection, signaling to any future accusers that Roman authorities would not readily entertain such religious disputes. With the immediate threat neutralized and the proconsul's ruling providing a period of unexpected peace, Paul remained in Corinth for some time longer, continuing to strengthen the church and deepen the faith of its members. The events before Gallio's bema served as a powerful testament to divine guidance and protection, reinforcing the conviction that the message of Christ would not be silenced by human opposition. The church in Corinth, though still navigating the complexities of its diverse origins and the challenges of its pagan surroundings, stood firm, a testament to the resilience of faith and the transformative power of a message that continued to echo through the bustling streets and quiet homes of the ancient city. The echoes of the bema incident, though fading from the immediate clamor of the agora, resonated deeply within the nascent Christian community, solidifying their resolve and deepening their trust in the unseen hand guiding their path. The church in Corinth, though still navigating the complexities of its diverse origins and the challenges of its pagan surroundings, stood firm, a testament to the resilience of faith and the transformative power of a message that continued to echo through the bustling streets and quiet homes of the ancient city. The workshop of Priscilla and Aquila, nestled amidst the labyrinthine alleys where the scent of cured leather often mingled with the salt-laden breeze from the nearby port of Lycaon, had become more than just a place of commerce. It was a sanctuary, a hub of quiet industry and fervent discussion. Here, the rhythmic hum of needles piercing coarse goat hair fabric, the gentle rasp of cutting tools against stretched hides, and the low murmur of voices discussing scripture and daily life formed a comforting symphony. Priscilla, her hands deft and strong from years of working with resistant materials, often paused, a half-stitched tent panel draped across her lap, to listen intently as Paul expounded on the scriptures, his voice a steady, reassuring presence in their shared space. She admired his tireless dedication, the way his brow would furrow in concentration as he meticulously pieced together a tent, just as he pieced together theological arguments with unwavering precision. Her own journey, from the sophisticated streets of Rome to this bustling, sometimes overwhelming, Greek city, had taught her much about adaptation and the enduring strength of faith. The emperor's decree had stripped them of their home, but it had also, in a way she now understood, led them directly into the heart of a new mission, a mission far grander than they could have ever imagined. Aquila, ever the pragmatic and steadfast partner, would often nod in agreement with Paul, his gaze thoughtful as he worked, his movements economical and precise. He found a deep satisfaction in the honest labor of tent making, a craft that provided for their needs and, more importantly, allowed Paul to preach without being a burden to the fledgling community. He remembered the sting of leaving Rome, the uncertainty of starting anew, but the shared purpose with Paul, the palpable sense of divine presence in their lives, had transformed that initial hardship into a profound blessing. He watched Priscilla, her dark eyes alight with understanding as Paul spoke, and a quiet pride swelled within him. She was, he knew, the sharper mind, the quicker wit, and her insights often illuminated aspects of Paul's teachings in ways that even Paul himself appreciated. Their workshop, with its stacks of silicium, its tools glinting in the shafts of sunlight that pierced the dust motes, was a testament to their shared resilience, a place where the sacred and the mundane intertwined seamlessly. Beyond the workshop's familiar confines, the synagogue, with its unassuming facade amidst the grander Roman architecture, remained a focal point of Paul's early ministry. Crispus, the ruler of the synagogue, a man whose presence commanded respect within the Jewish community, observed Paul with a mixture of curiosity and growing unease. He had seen many itinerant preachers pass through Corinth, their words often fleeting, their impact negligible. But Paul was different. His arguments, rooted deeply in the very scriptures Crispus had dedicated his life to studying, possessed an undeniable power, a logical coherence that resonated with an unsettling truth. Crispus would sit on the synagogue bench, his posture outwardly composed, but inwardly, a tempest of questions brewed. He listened as Paul meticulously unraveled prophecies, connecting them with the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth, painting a picture of a Messiah far removed from the political liberator many still awaited. The air in the synagogue during these discussions was often thick with tension, a palpable mixture of fervent belief and staunch resistance. The familiar scent of aged scrolls and lamp oil seemed to hum with the weight of centuries of tradition, now challenged by a new, compelling narrative. Crispus would sit on the synagogue bench, his posture outwardly composed, but inwardly a tempest of questions brewed. He listened as Paul meticulously unraveled prophecies, connecting them with the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth, painting a picture of a Messiah far removed from the political liberator many still awaited. The air in the synagogue during these discussions was often thick with tension, a palpable mixture of fervent belief and staunch resistance. The familiar scent of aged scrolls and lamp oil seemed to hum with the weight of centuries of tradition, now challenged by a new, compelling narrative. Crispus often found himself lingering after the services, engaging Paul in quiet, probing discussions. He was a man of deep intellect and even deeper conviction, and the idea of abandoning the traditions of his ancestors, the very bedrock of his identity, was not one he took lightly. He felt the weight of his position, the expectations of his community, pressing down upon him. Yet, Paul's words, delivered with both passion and profound humility, chipped away at his defenses, planting seeds of doubt in the fertile ground of his sincere faith. He saw the genuine love in Paul's eyes, not for argument's sake, but for the truth he believed would set them free. He noticed the quiet dignity of Priscilla and Aquila, their lives a living testament to the faith Paul proclaimed, their dedication unwavering despite their own displacement. The transformation he witnessed in some of the synagogue members who embraced Paul's message was undeniable, a newfound peace, a radiant joy that seemed to transcend the daily struggles of life in a bustling, often harsh, city. One evening, as the last rays of the setting sun cast long shadows across the dusty streets, painting the sky in hues of fiery orange and deep violet, Crispus walked home, his mind a whirlwind of thought. The clamor of the agora had begun to subside, replaced by the softer sounds of evening, the distant bleating of goats, the murmur of families gathering for their evening meal, the faint strains of a lyre from a nearby tavern. He passed by the imposing temple of Aphrodite, its marble gleaming faintly in the twilight, a stark reminder of the pervasive paganism that surrounded them. He thought of the sacrifices, the rituals, the empty promises of those gods, and contrasted them with the profound, personal relationship with the one true God that Paul spoke of, a God who had entered human history, suffered, and triumphed. The weight of his decision pressed upon him, a heavy cloak upon his shoulders. To believe in Jesus as the Messiah meant not just a change of theology, but a complete reordering of his life, his identity, his very purpose. It meant relinquishing his esteemed position, facing the potential scorn of his peers, and stepping into an unknown future. He reached his home, a modest but well-kept dwelling, and found his wife, Theodora, preparing their evening meal, the aroma of roasted lamb and herbs filling the air. She looked up, sensing the unusual gravity in his demeanor. "You are troubled, my husband," she observed, her voice gentle, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of years spent by his side. Crispus sat heavily, running a hand over his tired face. "Paul's words," he began, his voice low, "they pierce me, Theodora. They speak of a truth I can no longer deny." He recounted the day's discussions, the compelling arguments, the quiet certainty that had begun to bloom within his heart. Theodora listened patiently, her hands stilling their work. She too had heard Paul speak, had witnessed the sincerity of his faith, and had felt the stirring of something new within her own spirit. She knew her husband's integrity, his deep desire for truth, and she understood the magnitude of the struggle he faced. "If it is truth, Crispus," she said softly, her gaze meeting his, "then what is there to fear? Our God is a God of truth, is he not?" Her words, simple yet profound, resonated with him, cutting through the layers of fear and societal expectation. He looked at her, truly seeing her, and saw not just his wife, but a partner in faith, a woman whose quiet strength mirrored his own search for meaning. In that moment, a profound peace settled over him, displacing the turmoil. The decision, once so daunting, now felt inevitable, right? The following Sabbath, the synagogue was abuzz with its usual congregation, but an undercurrent of anticipation rippled through the assembly. Paul stood to speak, his voice clear and resonant, expounding from the scroll of Isaiah, his words weaving a tapestry of prophecy and fulfillment. Crispus sat in his customary place, but his usual thoughtful composure was now tinged with a quiet resolve. As Paul concluded, a hush fell over the room. Crispus rose, his heart pounding a steady rhythm against his ribs, yet his voice, when he spoke, was firm and clear, carrying across the hushed assembly. "Brothers and sisters," he began, his gaze sweeping across the familiar faces, "I have listened, I have studied, and I have prayed." The words of Paul, though challenging to our traditions, are not new words, but the very fulfillment of the scriptures we hold dear. He paused, taking a deep breath. "I believe that Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah, the Son of God, and I, with my entire household, choose to follow him." A collective gasp rippled through the synagogue, followed by a cacophony of whispers and murmurs. Some faces registered shock, others anger, and a few, a nascent hope. Crispus, however, stood tall, unwavering, his eyes now shining with a conviction that transcended fear. He felt a lightness he hadn't known in years, as if a great burden had been lifted from his soul. His wife, Theodora, and their children, who had been sitting among the women, rose and stood beside him, their silent support a powerful affirmation. The decision, once a private struggle, was now a public declaration, a turning point not just for Crispus, but for the entire community. The immediate aftermath was, as expected, tumultuous. Some members of the synagogue, fiercely loyal to the old ways, denounced Crispus, their voices sharp with indignation. Others, however, moved by his sincerity and the undeniable power of his testimony, began to question their own long-held assumptions. The news of the synagogue ruler's conversion spread like wildfire through the Jewish quarter and beyond, reaching even the bustling port districts where merchants haggled over exotic goods. It was a story that transcended the usual gossip, a testament to the profound impact of Paul's message. In the workshop, Priscilla and Aquila received the news with profound joy and a quiet sense of triumph. "The Lord works in mysterious ways," Priscilla murmured, her hands momentarily still on the cilicium, a soft smile gracing her lips. To think, the ruler of the synagogue himself. Aquila nodded, a deep satisfaction in his eyes. A powerful witness, indeed. This will open many doors and many hearts. They understood the courage it took for Crispus to make such a public stand, knowing the cost it would entail. His conversion was not just a personal victory, but a significant milestone for the fledgling church, demonstrating that the gospel was indeed for all, Jew and Gentile alike, capable of transforming even the most entrenched hearts. Following Crispus's public declaration, the workshop of Priscilla and Aquila became even more of a hive of activity, not just for tent making, but for the burgeoning Christian community. Crispus, now divested of his former position, found a new purpose, a newfound freedom in serving Christ. He spent hours with Paul, delving deeper into the scriptures, his keen intellect now fully engaged in understanding and articulating the tenets of his new faith. He brought with him not only his own family, but also a significant number of his former congregants, individuals who had been swayed by his integrity and the compelling truth he now embraced. These new believers, a mixture of Jewish converts and God-fearing Gentiles who had previously attended the synagogue, swelled the ranks of the nascent church, bringing with them a rich diversity of backgrounds and perspectives. The small gatherings in Priscilla and Aquila's home began to grow, necessitating more space. The scent of leather and goat hair now mingled with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sweet scent of oil lamps burning late into the night. The discussions, once confined to Paul's exposition, now broadened to include the testimonies of new believers, their stories of transformation weaving a vibrant tapestry of faith. Priscilla, with her sharp mind and compassionate heart, often took on the role of teacher, particularly for the women and children, explaining the scriptures in simple, accessible terms, her voice calm and reassuring. She found immense joy in nurturing these new seeds of faith, watching them take root and begin to flourish. She shared her own journey, her experiences of displacement and finding solace in God's unwavering presence, offering a powerful example of resilience. Aquila, ever the steady anchor, ensured that the practical needs of the growing community were met. He organized the distribution of food to those in need, managed the logistical challenges of their expanding gatherings, and provided a strong, quiet leadership that complemented Paul's more dynamic preaching. He saw the church not just as a collection of individuals, but as a living, breathing organism, requiring careful tending and diligent stewardship. His hands, accustomed to the precise work of tent making, now also served the community, building, repairing, and maintaining the physical spaces that facilitated their fellowship. The atmosphere in these gatherings was one of profound joy and deep fellowship. Despite the external pressures from those who opposed their message, a powerful sense of unity bound them together. They shared meals, prayed together, and studied the scriptures with an earnestness that reflected the preciousness of their newfound faith. The sounds of hymns, sung softly at first, then with growing confidence, filled the workshop, echoing into the quiet Corinthian nights. These were not just private moments of devotion, but public declarations of a new identity, a new way of life. Yet, the growth of the church was not without its challenges. The conversion of Crispus, while a triumph, also intensified the opposition from some within the Jewish community who felt betrayed and threatened by Paul's message. The cultural clashes between Jewish traditions and Gentile customs also presented delicate pastoral dilemmas, requiring wisdom and patience from Paul, Priscilla, and Aquila. They navigated these complexities with grace, emphasizing the universality of the gospel, reminding everyone that in Christ, there was neither Jew nor Greek, but a new creation. Paul, though still diligently working at his tent-making craft, found his time increasingly consumed by teaching, counseling, and nurturing the burgeoning community. He poured his heart and soul into these new believers, seeing in them the fulfillment of God's promises, the living embodiment of the seeds of faith he had sown. He walked through the bustling streets of Corinth, no longer a solitary figure, but accompanied by a growing number of disciples, their presence a quiet but powerful testimony to the transformative power of the gospel. The constant hum of trade, the scent of exotic spices, the grandeur of Roman temples, to all these elements of Corinth's vibrant life now served as a backdrop to the unfolding drama of faith, a drama in which ordinary people were being transformed, one heart at a time. The church, though still young and vulnerable, was taking root, its branches slowly but surely reaching towards the light, a testament to resilience, community, and the unwavering dedication of those who believed. The vibrant life of Corinth, with its ceaseless commerce and ancient grandeur, had indeed become a stage for a profound spiritual drama, and as the fledgling community of believers grew, so too did the currents of resistance begin to stir, swirling with increasing intensity around the figure of Paul. The synagogue, once a place of fervent debate and eager inquiry for many, now felt a palpable shift in its leadership, a hardening of resolve among those who viewed Paul's teachings not as a fulfillment of ancient prophecies but as a dangerous schism, an affront to their traditions. Crispus, the former synagogue ruler, had embraced the new message, his conversion a beacon of hope for some and a stark betrayal for others, leaving a void that was quickly filled by Sosthenes, a man whose conviction burned with an equally fierce, albeit opposing, flame. Sosthenes, with his stern countenance and unwavering adherence to the ancestral ways, saw in Paul's inclusive message a threat to the very fabric of their identity, a dilution of the sacred covenant that had bound their people for generations. The tension, which had long simmered beneath the surface, finally reached its boiling point, fueled by whispers and accusations that spread like wildfire through the Jewish quarter and beyond, painting Paul as a rabble-rouser, a distorter of the law, a man who dared to preach a Messiah who had suffered a criminal's death. Sosthenes, believing himself to be the guardian of truth, felt an urgent imperative to act, to put an end to what he perceived as a burgeoning heresy that threatened to unravel the community. He gathered around him a cohort of like-minded individuals, their faces etched with a mixture of indignation and righteous anger, and together they resolved to bring their grievances before the highest Roman authority in the city, the newly arrived proconsul of Achaia, Lucius Junius Gallio Aninus. Gallio, a man of refined intellect and renowned eloquence, the brother of the esteemed philosopher Seneca, had only recently taken up his post in Corinth, his arrival marked by the usual pomp and circumstance befitting a Roman official of his standing. His days were filled with the weighty matters of provincial administration, the adjudication of disputes that truly concerned Roman law, and the careful maintenance of the Pax Romana, that delicate balance of order and governance that allowed the vast empire to function. He was a man accustomed to logic and precedent, to the clear distinctions of legal codes, and his reputation for fairness, though tinged with a certain patrician detachment, preceded him. The proconsul's tribunal, a raised platform known as the bema, stood prominently in the heart of the agora, a place where the clamor of merchants and the murmur of daily life often mingled with the solemn pronouncements of Roman justice. It was here, amidst the very pulse of Corinth, that Sosthenes and his delegation chose to make their stand. On a day when the sun beat down with a relentless Mediterranean intensity, casting sharp shadows across the ancient stones of the marketplace, a commotion began to build around the bema. A crowd, drawn by the unusual spectacle, started to gather, their curiosity piqued by the sight of Sosthenes, his face flushed with determination, leading a group of prominent Jewish men towards the proconsul's seat. Paul, who had been teaching quietly in a house nearby, was quickly apprised of the unfolding drama, and as he made his way through the throng, a sense of quiet resolve settled upon him. He knew this moment was inevitable, a clash of worlds that had been building for months, and he prepared himself to face whatever judgment awaited. Sosthenes, stepping forward with an air of solemn authority, began to address Gallio, his voice ringing out with an impassioned plea, though his words were carefully chosen to appeal to Roman sensibilities. This man, Sosthenes declared, his arm sweeping dramatically towards Paul, who stood calmly amidst the Roman guards, persuades people to worship God in ways contrary to the law. He spoke of Paul's teachings as a dangerous innovation, a departure from the established religious practices that had long been tolerated by Rome, subtly implying that such deviations could lead to civil unrest, a disruption of the very order Gallio was sworn to uphold. The other Jewish leaders nodded vigorously in agreement, their murmurs of assent adding to the weight of the accusation, hoping to sway the proconsul with their collective indignation. Gallio listened, his expression unreadable, his gaze shifting between the accusers and the accused. He observed Paul, a man of unassuming stature, yet possessed of an undeniable inner strength, standing with an almost serene composure amidst the swirling accusations. The proconsul's sharp mind quickly began to dissect the essence of the complaint, sifting through the religious rhetoric for any tangible breach of Roman law. He was not interested in theological debates or the finer points of Jewish scripture. His concern was with the maintenance of public peace and the proper administration of justice according to the Roman legal framework. He knew that the Jewish people, by ancient decree, were permitted to practice their religion, and as long as their internal disputes did not spill over into sedition or violence, they were largely left to govern their own affairs. Paul, sensing an opportunity to defend himself, began to open his mouth, ready to articulate the truth of his message, to explain how his teachings were not a rejection of the law but its ultimate fulfillment. But before he could utter a single word, Gallio raised a hand, a gesture that commanded immediate silence, his voice, though calm, carrying an unmistakable ring of authority. If it were a matter of some wrongdoing or serious crime, O Jews, Gallio pronounced, his gaze sweeping across the anxious faces of Sosthenes and his companions, I would have good reason to bear with you. He paused, allowing his words to sink in, his honeyed eloquence cutting through the tension with a precision that was both polite and dismissive. But if it is a question of words and names and your own law, he continued, his tone now tinged with a hint of impatience, see to it yourselves. I do not intend to be a judge of these things. With that decisive declaration, Gallio waved his hand, a clear signal to his lictors that the session was concluded, that the case was dismissed. He had made his judgment, not on the merits of Paul's theology, but on the simple principle that such matters fell outside the purview of Roman law. To him, it was merely an internal squabble among a particular religious sect, a distinction without consequence for the broader Roman order. He rose from the bema, his attention already turning to more pressing administrative duties, leaving the accusers stunned and the crowd buzzing with renewed excitement. And without consequence for the broader Roman order. He rose from the bema, his attention already turning to more pressing administrative duties, leaving the accusers stunned and the crowd buzzing with renewed excitement. Sosthenes and his fellow accusers stood frozen for a moment, their carefully constructed case crumbling before their eyes, their righteous indignation now curdling into a bitter frustration. They had brought their most formidable opponent before the highest authority, only to be told that their grievances were irrelevant, dismissed as mere theological quibbles. The crowd, which had been observing the proceedings with a mixture of apprehension and morbid curiosity, now began to stir with a different kind of energy. Many of the Greeks present, who had long harbored a simmering resentment towards the Jewish community for their perceived exclusivity and their attempts to proselytize, saw Gallio's dismissal as a tacit endorsement of their own frustrations. They had witnessed the Jewish leaders' efforts to disrupt the peace, to impose their internal disputes upon the Roman system, and now, seeing their efforts thwarted, a volatile spark ignited within the crowd. Suddenly, without warning, the atmosphere shifted from one of judicial formality to raw, unbridled mob anger. A surge of people, their faces contorted with a mixture of resentment and opportunistic malice, turned their attention from Paul to Sosthenes. "Seize Sosthenes," someone shouted, and the cry was quickly taken up by others, transforming into a roar. Before Sosthenes could react, before his companions could offer any meaningful protection, the crowd descended upon him. Fists flew, angry shouts filled the air, and Sosthenes, the synagogue leader who had so confidently presented his case moments before, found himself caught in a maelstrom of unexpected violence. He was dragged away from the bema, his cries of protest swallowed by the raucous clamor, beaten mercilessly in the very public square where he had sought to bring Paul to justice. Gallio, observing the sudden eruption of violence from his now elevated position, simply looked on, his expression still one of cool detachment. He made no move to intervene, no command to his guards to restore order. To him, this was merely the natural consequence of an internal dispute, a matter of no concern to Roman authority as long as it did not escalate into a full-blown riot that threatened the stability of the city. His indifference was absolute, a chilling testament to the Roman pragmatism that valued order above all else, even if it meant allowing a local leader to suffer the wrath of an angry populace. Paul, witnessing the brutal scene unfold, felt a complex mix of emotions. There was no triumph in his heart, only a profound sadness for the violence that had erupted, a sorrow for the deep divisions that festered between people. He understood Sosthenes' convictions, even as he disagreed with them, and the sight of any man being subjected to such an ordeal was a heavy burden. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, he also recognized the hand of divine protection. Gallio's judgment, though delivered with a casual indifference, had inadvertently provided Paul with a crucial shield, a legal precedent that would allow him to continue his work in Corinth and beyond, unhindered by Roman interference. The proconsul's pragmatic decision had, in effect, declared that the message Paul preached was not a threat to the empire, but merely a matter of religious interpretation, thereby granting the nascent Christian movement a vital space to grow and flourish within the vast Roman world. As the commotion slowly subsided, and the bruised and battered Sosthenes was eventually left to tend to his wounds, Paul remained in Corinth for some time longer, his resolve strengthened by the events of that day. The incident at the bema had been a powerful, albeit painful, lesson in resilience, a stark reminder of the opposition that would inevitably arise, but also of the unexpected ways in which divine providence could offer protection. The Tentmaker's workshop continued to hum with activity, providing a steady rhythm to his days, a grounding presence amidst the spiritual battles. He continued to teach, to preach, to build up the community of believers, knowing that the seeds of faith, once planted, would continue to grow, watered by perseverance and protected by the unseen hand of grace. The proconsul's judgment, intended to dismiss a minor religious squabble, had instead become a pivotal moment, a quiet declaration that the gospel, though often met with fierce resistance, would find its way, adapting and enduring, across the diverse landscapes of the Roman Empire, touching hearts and transforming lives, one soul at a time. The proconsul's judgment, intended to dismiss a minor religious squabble, had instead become a pivotal moment, a quiet declaration that the gospel, though often met with fierce resistance, would find its way, adapting and enduring, across the diverse landscapes of the Roman Empire, touching hearts and transforming lives, one soul at a time. The echoes of Gallio's pronouncement seemed to hang in the air above the bema, a silent testament to the unexpected freedom that had been granted, not just to Paul, but to the nascent community of believers who had gathered, breathless, to witness the proceedings. A collective sigh, almost imperceptible, rippled through the small group of Christians, a release of tension that had coiled tight in their chests for weeks, a quiet exhalation of relief that mingled with the general murmur of the departing crowd. Paul, his shoulders still carrying the phantom weight of the accusations, felt a strange lightness settle over him as he descended the steps of the bema, his gaze sweeping over the faces of those who had stood by him. There was Priscilla, her dark eyes, usually so keen and focused, now softened with an unspoken gratitude, a faint smile playing on her lips as she met his gaze, her hand instinctively reaching for Aquila's. Aquila, ever the steady anchor, offered a firm nod, his expression a mixture of relief and quiet determination, already contemplating the next steps, the renewed work that lay before them. The air, once thick with the acrid scent of fear and accusation, now seemed to carry the faint, sweet perfume of jasmine from a nearby garden, a gentle reminder of life's enduring beauty amidst the city's harsh realities. But the peace was fleeting, a fragile bloom in the dusty arena of public opinion. As Paul, Priscilla, and Aquila began to make their way through the dispersing throng, a sudden surge of movement erupted near the bema. A roar, raw and guttural, tore through the marketplace, drawing all eyes back to the raised platform. There, amidst a swirling vortex of angry faces, stood Sosthenes, the synagogue leader, his robes disheveled, his features contorted in a mask of shock and pain. The crowd, a volatile mix of Greeks and disgruntled Jews, had turned on him, their frustration at Gallio's dismissal finding an immediate, physical outlet. Blows rained down upon him, a brutal, indiscriminate assault that seemed to materialize from the very air, a sudden, violent tempest born of disappointment and rage. Paul watched, transfixed, a knot forming in his stomach, his mind racing to comprehend the sudden shift in the crowd's fury. He had just been the target of their ire, and now, Sosthenes, his accuser, was suffering the very violence Paul had so narrowly escaped. A complex tapestry of emotions unspooled within him, a flicker of human sympathy for the suffering man, a chilling understanding of the mob's capricious nature, and a profound, almost unsettling, sense of divine intervention. It was a stark, brutal demonstration of the world's unpredictable currents, a reminder that even in victory, the path was never truly smooth, never entirely safe. Priscilla, her hand now gripping Paul's arm, gasped softly, her eyes wide with a mixture of horror and pity, the harsh reality of their precarious existence laid bare once more. Aquila, ever practical, gently steered them away from the immediate chaos, his voice a low rumble, urging them to move, to seek the relative safety of the workshop. Back in the familiar sanctuary of their workshop, the rhythmic thwack of the mallet against the canvas, the scent of cured leather, and the quiet hum of their shared industry offered a much-needed balm to their rattled nerves. The afternoon sun, filtering through the open doorway, cast long, golden stripes across the packed earth floor, illuminating the stacks of goat hair cloth and the intricate patterns of their tools. Priscilla, her movements precise and comforting, began to prepare a simple meal of olives, bread, and dried figs, the quiet clatter of earthenware plates a grounding sound in the aftermath of the morning's tumult. She watched Paul as he meticulously stitched a seam, his brow furrowed in concentration, but his gaze often drifting, lost in thought. She knew the weight of what he had witnessed, the unsettling nature of Sosthenes' public humiliation. It was a strange thing to see, wasn't it? Priscilla finally ventured, her voice soft, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between them. She placed a bowl of figs on the low table between them, her eyes meeting Paul's with an understanding gaze. To see the accuser become the accused, the one who sought to harm you, now suffering at the hands of the very people he sought to impress. Paul paused, his needle suspended mid-air, a long, thoughtful sigh escaping him. Indeed, Priscilla. It was a sobering sight. A vivid illustration of the fickle nature of men, and perhaps a testament to a divine hand at work, though in a way that chills the soul. He ran a hand over the rough canvas, his fingers tracing the sturdy threads. I confess, a part of me felt a pang of something akin to sorrow for him. He was zealous, misguided perhaps, but zealous nonetheless. To be so utterly abandoned, so publicly shamed, his voice trailed off, the unspoken implications hanging heavy in the air. He thought of his own past, his own zealous persecution of believers, and the profound, transformative mercy he had received. Could such a transformation be possible for Sosthenes, even after such a public fall? The thought was a quiet, persistent whisper in the chambers of his mind. Aquila, who had been quietly sharpening a cutting tool, looked up, his expression thoughtful. The Greeks, they care little for our Jewish squabbles, Paul. They saw only a case dismissed, a proconsul's authority upheld, and perhaps a chance to vent their own frustrations against a figure of Jewish authority. It was not about you, or Sosthenes, in the end. It was about their own shifting allegiances, their own volatile temperaments. He offered a piece of bread to Paul, a gesture of quiet camaraderie. But it does mean something, doesn't it? Gallio's ruling. It means we can continue our work here, unhindered, for a time at least. Paul nodded, taking the bread, his gaze now fixed on the intricate weave of the tent fabric. Yes, Aquila, it does. It grants us a reprieve, a breathing space. The Lord has opened a door, a wide and effective door, even if there are many adversaries. We have sown much here, and the harvest, though still young, is promising. There are many who have heard, many who have believed, both Jew and Gentile. Corinth, for all its complexities, its pagan temples and its bustling commerce, has become a fertile ground. He thought of the house churches, small flames flickering in the vast darkness of the city, growing stronger with each passing day. He pictured Crispus, the former synagogue ruler, now a fervent believer, his home a hub of Christian fellowship. He remembered the many others, the humble and the wealthy, the slaves and the free, all united in their new faith. Over the next few weeks, a quiet, yet profound, shift settled over their ministry in Corinth. The public spectacle at the bema, far from stifling their work, had inadvertently granted it a strange, almost official, legitimacy in the eyes of the Roman authorities. The city, always a place of rapid change and shifting allegiances, seemed to absorb the new reality with its characteristic adaptability. The synagogue, though still a place of Jewish worship, no longer held the same undisputed sway over the burgeoning Christian community, which now met openly in homes, their numbers steadily growing. The workshops of Priscilla and Aquila, and Paul, continued their diligent work, the rhythmic sounds of their trade a constant backdrop to their deeper mission. The scent of leather and goat hair, once merely the smell of their livelihood, now mingled with the quiet prayers and fervent discussions that filled their evenings, the very air of the space imbued with a sense of purpose and divine presence. Paul, ever the tireless laborer, continued to teach and preach, his days a seamless blend of tent-making and evangelism. He would rise before dawn, the cool morning air carrying the faint aroma of the sea, and spend hours meticulously cutting and stitching, his hands calloused and strong, his mind simultaneously engaged in the practicalities of his craft and the profound mysteries of the gospel. Then, as the city stirred to leave, he would move among the people, his voice, though not booming, carrying the weight of conviction, sharing the message of Christ with anyone who would listen. He walked the dusty streets of the agora, past the bustling stalls overflowing with exotic goods, past the grand Roman temples, his gaze taking in the vibrant tapestry of Corinthian life, seeing souls in every face, every hurried step, every weary glance. He saw the merchants, the artisans, the philosophers, the slaves, each one a potential vessel for the transformative power of faith. Priscilla and Aquila, his steadfast companions, continued to be pillars of strength and wisdom. Priscilla, with her keen intellect and deep understanding of the scriptures, often engaged in discussions with new converts, patiently explaining the nuances of the faith, her gentle yet firm guidance a source of immense comfort and clarity. She possessed a remarkable ability to connect with people from all walks of life, her aristocratic background giving her an unexpected grace in navigating the city's complex social strata, while her humble work as a tent maker grounded her in the realities of everyday life. Aquila, with his quiet strength and unwavering loyalty, provided a steady presence, his practical wisdom often cutting through theological complexities, bringing a grounded perspective to their discussions. He was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes, his dedication to the community and his craft a living testament to his faith. Their home, their workshop, remained a vibrant hub, a place of refuge and instruction, a beacon of light in the bustling, often chaotic, city. As the seasons turned, and the sun began its slow descent towards autumn, a new sense of urgency began to stir within Paul. He felt the familiar pull of the road, the restless spirit of the evangelist, urging him onward to new horizons, new cities waiting to hear the message. He had poured himself into Corinth, had seen a vibrant community take root and begin to flourish, a testament to the enduring power of the gospel. But the world was vast, and the call to spread the good news echoed ceaselessly in his heart. He knew his time in Corinth, though fruitful, was drawing to a close. The church here, though still young, had found its footing, nurtured by the tireless efforts of Priscilla and Aquila, and the many faithful believers who had risen to leadership within the burgeoning house churches. One cool evening, as the last rays of sunlight painted the western sky in hues of fiery orange and deep violet, casting long shadows across the workshop, Paul sat with Priscilla and Aquila, the familiar scent of their craft mingling with the faint aroma of wood smoke from a nearby hearth. The air was still, save for the distant murmur of the city and the occasional chirping of crickets. He had been pondering his departure for some time, the decision weighing heavily on him, a bittersweet blend of accomplishment and longing. "My friends," Paul began, his voice soft, almost a whisper, "the Lord has blessed our time here in Corinth beyond measure. We have seen hearts transformed, lives renewed, and a community of believers established, strong and resilient." He paused, his gaze sweeping over their faces, a deep affection evident in his eyes. "But the Spirit stirs within me, urging me onward. There are other cities, other souls, who have yet to hear the message of Christ. I feel a call to journey to Syria, perhaps to Ansh, and from there, to explore new territories, to continue the work the Lord has set before me." Priscilla and Aquila exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them, a shared understanding of Paul's restless, evangelistic spirit. They had seen this before, this divine restlessness that propelled him from city to city, a living embodiment of the gospel's expansive reach. They knew his heart, knew that to hold him back would be to stifle the very essence of his calling. "We understand, Paul," Priscilla said, her voice steady, though a hint of wistful sadness touched her tone. "Your work here is done, in a sense. The seeds are planted, the roots are taking hold. The church here, by God's grace, will continue to grow, nurtured by the Spirit and by the faithful who have risen among them." She reached across the table, her hand resting gently on his arm. "But we will miss your presence, your teaching, your unwavering spirit." Aquila nodded in agreement, his usual stoicism softened by the warmth of their shared journey. "Indeed, Paul. Our workshop, our home, will feel quieter without you. But we know the Lord's call is paramount. And we are here to continue the work, to strengthen what has been built." He then offered a thought that had been brewing in his mind. "We have been considering our own next steps, Paul. The church in Ephesus, we hear, is in need of strong teaching, of guidance. It is a city of immense influence, a gateway to Asia Minor. Perhaps, after you depart for Syria, it might be time for us to consider a journey there, to lend our hands to the work of the gospel in that great city." Paul's eyes lit up, a broad smile spreading across his face. "Ephesus! Yes, Aquila, Priscilla, that is a marvelous thought. A city of such strategic importance, a center of pagan worship, ripe for the harvest. Your wisdom, your experience, your steadfast faith, they would be invaluable there. The Lord truly works in mysterious ways, always preparing the path, always raising up laborers for his vineyard." He felt a surge of renewed energy, a confirmation that his departure, though tinged with sadness, was part of a larger, divine tapestry. The work would continue, not just through him, but through the many faithful disciples he had discipled, the communities he had helped to establish. The decision was made, the path forward illuminated by a shared sense of purpose. The days that followed were filled with a quiet flurry of activity, a meticulous preparation for Paul's departure. He spent long hours with the leaders of the Corinthian church, offering final words of encouragement, imparting wisdom gleaned from his own journey, and praying fervently for their continued growth and steadfastness in the faith. He walked through the bustling marketplace one last time, his gaze lingering on the familiar sights and sounds, the merchants hawking their wares, the scent of exotic spices, the grandeur of the Roman buildings, the humble workshops, the faces of the people he had come to know and love. Each sight, each sound, was imprinted upon his memory, a testament to the profound impact Corinth had had on his own life and ministry. The final evening before his departure was spent in a simple, heartfelt fellowship meal at the home of Priscilla and Aquila. The air was thick with a mixture of joy and sorrow, of gratitude and anticipation. The small gathering of believers, a testament to the thriving community that had been forged in the crucible of Corinth, shared stories, sang hymns, and broke bread together, their voices a soft murmur in the quiet night. Paul, surrounded by these dear friends, felt a profound sense of peace, a deep satisfaction in the work accomplished, and an unwavering faith in the journey ahead. He looked at Priscilla, her eyes shining with a quiet strength, and at Aquila, his face etched with a lifetime of experience and unwavering devotion. He knew the church in Corinth was in good hands, nurtured by their steadfast love and guidance. As dawn approached, painting the eastern sky with soft hues of rose and gold, Paul made his way to the port of Centria, a small group of believers accompanying him, their footsteps echoing softly on the cobbled path. The salty tang of the sea air filled his lungs, a familiar scent that always spoke of new beginnings and distant shores. The ship, a sturdy merchant vessel bound for Syria, lay at anchor, its sails furled, waiting for the morning breeze. The sounds of the port were already stirring, the creak of ropes, the shouts of sailors, the rhythmic lapping of waves against the hull. Before boarding, Paul performed a simple, yet significant, act. He stood by the water's edge, the rising sun illuminating his profile, and had his hair cut short, a visible sign of a vow he had taken, a personal offering of gratitude to God for the protection and success of his mission in Corinth. It was a quiet, personal moment, a physical manifestation of his spiritual commitment, a symbolic shedding of the past and a preparation for the future. Priscilla and Aquila watched, their hearts full, understanding the depth of his devotion, the unwavering commitment that propelled him forward. Then, with a final embrace, a heartfelt exchange of blessings, and a promise to meet again, Paul stepped onto the gangplank, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He turned once more, waving to the small group of faithful believers gathered on the shore, their faces etched with a mixture of sadness and hope. He saw Priscilla and Aquila, standing side by side, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun, their presence a comforting anchor in the vastness of the world. He knew they would continue the work, their hands busy with tent making, their hearts fervent with the gospel, their home a sanctuary for the nascent church. As the ship slowly pulled away from the shore, the sails unfurling to catch the gentle morning breeze, Paul stood at the stern, watching Corinth recede into the distance. The city, with its grand temples and bustling markets, its vibrant life and its profound spiritual struggles, slowly diminished, becoming a mere speck on the horizon. He carried with him the memories of his 18 months there, the initial struggles, the fierce opposition, the unwavering support of Priscilla and Aquila, the joy of seeing lives transformed, the establishment of a thriving community of faith. He carried the echoes of Gallio's judgment, the image of Sosthenes' public humiliation, and the quiet triumph of the gospel finding a foothold in a complex, cosmopolitan world. He felt the gentle sway of the ship beneath his feet, the rhythmic creak of the timbers, the vast expanse of the sea stretching out before him. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with unknown challenges and uncharted territories, but his spirit was resolute, his faith unshakable. He was a tent maker, a traveler, an apostle, forever moving, forever sowing, forever trusting in the unseen hand of grace that guided his every step. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a shimmering path across the azure waters, Paul looked towards the distant shores, his heart filled with a quiet anticipation, ready to embrace whatever new adventures awaited him, knowing that the Spirit would continue to lead, to protect, and to empower, across the vast and winding roads of the Roman Empire. Years later, the memory of Corinth still lingered in Paul's mind, a vibrant tapestry woven with the threads of fervent faith and persistent struggles, a city where the gospel had taken root amidst the clamor of commerce and the grandeur of pagan temples. He had departed from its bustling ports, leaving behind a nascent community of believers, a fragile yet resilient seed planted in the fertile, often tumultuous, soil of that Roman colony, trusting that the Spirit he had seen move so powerfully would continue its work of nurturing and growth. His journeys had taken him to Ephesus, a city of even greater renown and spiritual darkness, where he now spent his days, much as he had in Corinth, dividing his time between the arduous labor of tent-making and the fervent proclamation of the good news, his hands calloused from the goat hair fabric and his voice hoarse from impassioned teaching. Yet, even in the midst of Ephesus's own challenges and triumphs, a quiet unease occasionally stirred within him, a subtle tremor of concern for the young church he had left behind across the Aegean. He often thought of the faces he had known in Corinth, Crispus, the former synagogue leader, now a steadfast follower of Christ, Gaius, whose home had become a haven for believers, and the many others, both Jew and Gentile, who had embraced the transformative message. He remembered the vibrant discussions in the synagogue, the quiet intensity of their gatherings in Aquila and Priscilla's workshop, and the profound joy of baptisms in the cool waters of the nearby streams. But he also remembered the underlying currents of division, the subtle whispers of pride, and the lingering shadows of their former lives that had occasionally threatened to darken the nascent light of their fellowship. One sweltering afternoon in Ephesus, as the sun beat down mercilessly upon the city and the air hung heavy with the scent of spices and sweat from the bustling marketplace, Paul sat hunched over a half-finished tent, his brow furrowed in concentration. The rhythmic scrape of his awl against the tough silicium was the only sound in the small, shaded courtyard where he worked, a temporary respite from the incessant din of the city. He paused, wiping a bead of perspiration from his forehead with the back of his hand, and gazed absently at the intricate pattern of the woven fabric. A sudden, unbidden thought of Corinth, sharp and clear, pierced through his focused labor. He wondered how they fared, those eager, sometimes impetuous, believers. Had the seeds of unity he had sown taken deep root, or had the thorny weeds of discord begun to choke the tender shoots of their faith? Across the shimmering expanse of the Aegean Sea, in the very heart of Corinth, the woman named Chloe moved through her spacious, well-appointed home with a quiet, observant grace. Her household, a bustling microcosm of servants, freedmen, and family members, was a testament to her considerable standing within the city, a status that afforded her both influence and a keen vantage point from which to observe the unfolding life of the burgeoning Christian community. The scent of olive oil and freshly baked bread often mingled with the faint aroma of the sea air that drifted in through her open windows, a constant reminder of Corinth's strategic position as a maritime hub. Chloe was a woman of mature years, her face etched with the wisdom of experience, her eyes possessing a gentle yet discerning gaze that missed little. She had been among the first in Corinth to embrace the teachings of Paul, drawn by the profound simplicity and radical love of the gospel message, and her home had quickly become a vital gathering place for the nascent church, a sanctuary amidst the pagan grandeur of the city. In the months following Paul's departure, a subtle shift had begun to occur within the fellowship, a gradual erosion of the initial unity that had so characterized their early days. At first, it was merely a murmur, a faint discord beneath the surface of their shared worship and communal meals. Chloe, with her deep spiritual sensitivity and an innate understanding of human nature, noticed these nascent fissures with a growing sense of disquiet. She saw it in the way certain individuals gravitated exclusively towards those who had been baptized by Apollos, speaking of his eloquence with an almost possessive pride, subtly diminishing the foundational work of Paul. She heard it in the hushed conversations after their gatherings, where some would declare, "I am of Cephas," as if faith were a banner to be claimed rather than a shared journey to be walked. The divisions, initially mere preferences, began to harden into factions, each group subtly asserting its perceived superiority, its distinct understanding of the truth. Chloe observed, with a heavy heart, how the very spirit of communal love, which Paul had so passionately preached, seemed to be slowly dissipating, replaced by a spirit of competition and judgment. She saw believers, once united in their shared devotion, now casting sidelong glances at one another, their fellowship strained by unspoken resentments. The joyful simplicity of their worship began to feel tinged with an underlying tension, the warmth of their communal meals occasionally chilled by the coolness of unspoken disagreements. One evening, as the last rays of the setting sun painted the sky in hues of fiery orange and deep violet, casting long shadows across her peristyle courtyard, Chloe sat alone, her thoughts heavy with concern. The distant sounds of the city, the shouts of merchants, the clatter of chariots, the faint strains of music from a nearby tavern, seemed to underscore the growing disquiet within her own heart. She had witnessed the transformative power of the gospel in Corinth, seen lives utterly changed, hearts softened, and ancient animosities dissolved. To see that fragile unity now threatened by internal strife was a source of profound sorrow for her. She recalled Paul's fervent pleas for unity, his warnings against division, his unwavering emphasis on love as the supreme virtue. Had his words, so powerfully delivered, already begun to fade from their collective memory? The issues were not merely theological disagreements, they manifested in practical, tangible ways that disrupted the harmony of their gatherings. There were disputes over spiritual gifts, with some boasting of their ecstatic utterances while others felt overlooked and undervalued. There were questions about food sacrificed to idols, causing friction between those who felt free to eat and those whose consciences were troubled, leading to judgment and condemnation rather than patient understanding. Even their sacred communal meal, the very symbol of their unity in Christ, had become a scene of disorder, with some arriving early to feast sumptuously while others, the poorer members, arrived later to find little left, a stark betrayal of the very spirit of fellowship. Chloe had observed these painful scenes with a growing sense of alarm, her gentle spirit wounded by the lack of consideration and love. She remembered Paul's teachings on the body of Christ, how each member, no matter how seemingly insignificant, was vital and interconnected, working together in harmonious interdependence. But what she now saw was a body fractured, limbs vying for prominence, each claiming to be more essential than the other, forgetting the head that united them all. The vibrant, life-giving pulse of the Spirit seemed to be weakening, overshadowed by the clamor of human pride and self-assertion. Chloe knew that this internal strife, if left unchecked, would not only cripple the spiritual growth of the believers but also undermine their witness to the pagan world around them. How could they proclaim a message of peace and reconciliation when their own community was riddled with discord? The very thought pained her deeply, for she understood the profound responsibility they bore as lights in a city steeped in darkness. She had seen the skepticism in the eyes of their pagan neighbors, the cynical amusement at their unusual practices. Any visible disunity would only confirm their prejudices and hinder the spread of the gospel. After much prayer and thoughtful consideration, Chloe came to a firm conviction: Paul, their spiritual father and the one who had first brought the light of the gospel to Corinth, must be informed. He possessed the wisdom, the authority, and the deep love for them that could address these burgeoning problems with both firmness and compassion. She knew that he would not shy away from the difficult task of correction, nor would he abandon them in their struggles. His letters, even when stern, were always imbued with an overwhelming desire for their spiritual well-being and maturity. Gathering a few trusted members of her household, individuals known for their discretion, their loyalty, and their unwavering commitment to the truth, Chloe carefully explained the gravity of the situation. She spoke not with accusation or gossip, but with a profound sense of concern, detailing the various factions, the disputes over practices, and the erosion of love that was threatening to unravel the very fabric of their community. She emphasized the urgency of the matter, knowing that distance and time could only exacerbate the problems. "You must go to Ephesus," she instructed them, her voice gentle but resolute, "and find Paul. Tell him all that you have seen and heard. Do not embellish, nor omit anything. He needs to understand the full measure of what is happening here, so that he may guide us back to the path of unity and truth." Her eyes, though clouded with worry, held a steady light of hope, a quiet faith that Paul's intervention would be the balm their wounded community so desperately needed. The journey to Ephesus was not a trivial undertaking. It involved navigating the bustling port of Cenchrea, securing passage on a merchant ship across the often treacherous Aegean Sea, and then finding Paul amidst the labyrinthine streets of a sprawling metropolis. It would be a journey fraught with the usual perils of ancient travel, unpredictable weather, potential piracy, and the general discomfort of sea voyages. Yet, the members of Chloe's household, understanding the immense importance of their mission, accepted the task without hesitation. They were not merely messengers, they were emissaries of a concerned Mother Church, carrying the weighty burden of its spiritual health across the waves. As Chloe watched them prepare for their departure, her heart felt a strange mixture of apprehension and relief. She knew that bringing these painful truths to light would be difficult, perhaps even uncomfortable for some, but it was a necessary step towards healing. She imagined Paul, somewhere in Ephesus, perhaps still working diligently on his tents, his mind occupied with the affairs of his current ministry. She pictured the moment her household members would arrive, their faces weary from travel, and deliver their solemn report. She could almost feel the weight of concern that would settle upon his shoulders, the deep love he held for the Corinthian believers stirring within him, compelling him to act. She thought of the letters that would surely follow, penned with his characteristic blend of apostolic authority, profound theological insight, and tender pastoral care. These letters, she knew, would not be mere admonitions but living epistles, breathing with the very Spirit of Christ, designed to correct, to encourage, to restore, and to remind them of the glorious truth that bound them together: one Lord, one faith, one baptism. Chloe's concern was not born of judgment, but of a deep, abiding love for the church, a love that mirrored Paul's own, a love that sought the flourishing and unity of God's people above all else. Her action, born of quiet observation and prayerful discernment, was a testament to her wisdom and her commitment to the communal harmony that she knew was essential for the true witness of the gospel in Corinth. And as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting the city in a soft, ethereal glow, Chloe offered a silent prayer, entrusting her beloved community and her courageous messengers into the unfailing hands of the Almighty, trusting that even in the midst of discord, divine guidance would prevail. The cool evening breeze, carrying the faint scent of the sea and the lingering aroma of evening meals, stirred the olive leaves outside Chloe's window, creating a soft, rustling lullaby that accompanied her thoughts. The city, though still alive with the distant echoes of human activity, had begun its slow descent into slumber, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had been brewing within the nascent Christian community. Chloe, her hands clasped loosely in her lap, sat by the open window, her gaze fixed on the darkening sky where the first stars began to prick through the velvet expanse. Her messengers, brave and resolute, were now well on their journey, carrying the weight of Corinth's struggles and her heartfelt plea to the Apostle Paul, who, she knew, was ministering far away in Ephesus. A profound sense of peace, hard-won after days of anxious deliberation, settled over her as she reflected on the wisdom of seeking counsel from one who had so profoundly shaped their faith. The weeks that followed stretched into a quiet vigil, each day a testament to Chloe's patient endurance. The daily rhythms of her household continued, the clatter of pottery, the murmur of conversations, the scent of baking bread, all providing a comforting counterpoint to the underlying tension within the church. She continued to host gatherings, to share meals, and to offer words of encouragement, her presence a steadying anchor amidst the swirling currents of disagreement. She listened with an open heart as members voiced their concerns, some lamenting the growing factions, others expressing confusion over doctrine, and still others struggling with the temptations of their pagan past. Chloe understood that the very vibrancy and diversity of Corinth, which had initially drawn so many to the gospel, now presented its greatest challenge, as different cultural interpretations and personal ambitions threatened to splinter the fragile unity of believers. Then, one crisp morning, as the sun was just beginning to warm the cobbled streets, a familiar figure appeared at her door, his face etched with the fatigue of travel but alight with purpose. Stephanas, one of the trusted members of her household whom she had dispatched, stood before her, a leather-bound scroll clutched carefully in his hand. A wave of relief, so potent it almost brought tears to her eyes, washed over Chloe. She ushered him inside, her heart pounding with anticipation. He spoke of their arduous journey, the treacherous seas, and the long, dusty roads, but most importantly, he spoke of Paul. The apostle, he recounted, had received their report with a mixture of sorrow and unwavering resolve, his eyes, though weary from his own labors, burning with a fierce love for the Corinthian believers. Paul had listened intently, asking probing questions, his mind already formulating the guidance they so desperately needed. Stephanas then unrolled the scroll, its parchment smelling faintly of ink and distant lands, and began to read aloud. Paul's words, though written from afar, resonated with an immediate and powerful presence, filling Chloe's spacious atrium. He began not with rebuke, but with profound gratitude, acknowledging their faith, their spiritual gifts, and the grace of God that had been poured out upon them in Christ Jesus. This opening, so characteristic of Paul's pastoral heart, immediately softened the apprehension that had settled over Chloe and the other household members who had gathered to listen. He reminded them of their shared foundation, of the one Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things existed, and through whom they had been called into fellowship. But then, with a gentle yet firm hand, Paul addressed the divisions, the contentious arguments, the factions that had begun to tear at the fabric of their community. He spoke of the folly of identifying with human leaders. I am of Paul, I am of Apollos, I am of Cephas, as if Christ himself were divided. His words painted a vivid picture of the absurdity of such boasts, reminding them that all leaders were merely servants through whom they had come to believe, each working according to the grace given them by God. He likened the church to a field, cultivated by different hands, but ultimately God's field, and to a building, with Christ as the sole foundation, upon which all must build carefully. Chloe felt a deep resonance with these metaphors, understanding the agricultural and architectural realities that shaped their daily lives in Corinth, making Paul's message profoundly tangible. Paul's letter then delved into the very heart of the issues, addressing their spiritual pride, their tolerance of immorality, and their disputes over matters of conscience and worship. He spoke with the authority of an apostle, yet always with the tender care of a spiritual father. He challenged their worldly wisdom, which often led to boasting and self-exaltation, contrasting it with the true wisdom of God, revealed in the cross of Christ, a wisdom that the world considered foolishness. He reminded them that they were not their own, but had been bought with a price, and therefore they were to honor God with their bodies. Chloe recalled Paul's own diligent hands, calloused from tent making, and understood that he lived by the principle of stewardship, using his body and his labor not for personal gain, but for the glory of God and the advancement of the gospel. One particular passage struck Chloe with profound clarity, Paul's discourse on love. He described love not as a fleeting emotion, but as a steadfast, patient, and kind force that does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, does not dishonor others, is not self-seeking, is not easily angered, and keeps no record of wrongs. This was the antidote, she realized, to the very poison that was infecting their community. This was the enduring principle that transcended cultural differences, personal preferences, and theological disputes. He elevated love above all spiritual gifts, above knowledge, above faith, declaring it to be the most excellent way, the eternal truth that would outlast all other temporary manifestations of God's Spirit. As Stephanas read these words, Chloe imagined Paul, perhaps in his own humble tent-making workshop in Ephesus, pausing between stitches, his mind wrestling with the complexities of human nature, his heart aching for the unity of his spiritual children in Corinth. The letter continued, addressing practical matters of worship, the proper observance of the Lord's Supper, and the resurrection of the dead, all woven together with the overarching theme of unity and mutual edification. Paul urged them to pursue love and to eagerly desire spiritual gifts, especially the gift of prophecy, for the building up of the church. He spoke of the body of Christ, a single entity with many diverse members, each essential, each playing a vital role, none superior to another. The eye could not say to the hand, "I don't need you," nor the head to the feet, "I don't need you." This vivid imagery resonated deeply with Chloe, who had witnessed firsthand how the varied talents and backgrounds of the Corinthian believers, when united, formed a powerful witness, but when fractured, led to weakness and discord. As Stephanas concluded the reading, a profound silence settled over Chloe's atrium, broken only by the gentle chirping of cicadas outside. The sun had climbed higher, casting long, slender shadows across the mosaic floor. The weight of Paul's words, delivered with such wisdom and authority, yet imbued with such deep affection, hung in the air. Chloe felt a renewed sense of hope, a conviction that the path forward, though challenging, was now illuminated. Paul had not simply offered solutions, he had provided a framework for leaving, a blueprint for a community rooted in Christ and bound by love. In the days and weeks that followed, Chloe became a tireless advocate for Paul's teachings. She meticulously copied sections of the letter, sharing them with other household heads and leaders within the community. She organized gatherings where the letter was read and discussed, encouraging open dialogue and heartfelt repentance. There were difficult conversations, moments of resistance, and the stubborn clinging to old habits, but Paul's words, imbued with divine authority and pastoral care, slowly began to work their transformative power. The spirit of contention gradually began to recede, replaced by a renewed focus on Christ and a deeper understanding of their shared identity as members of his body. Chloe observed the subtle shifts with a keen eye. The boastful arguments about spiritual gifts began to diminish, replaced by a more humble appreciation for each other's contributions. The divisions over leadership softened as believers remembered that all served the same Lord. The focus shifted from personal glory to the edification of the whole community. She saw members, once estranged, sharing meals again, offering forgiveness, and extending grace. The scent of leather and goat hair from the Tentmaker's workshop, once a reminder of Paul's humble labor, now seemed to Chloe to symbolize the enduring strength and resilience of a faith built on a solid foundation, meticulously crafted and carefully maintained. The city of Corinth, with its bustling agora and its imposing temples, continued its ceaseless rhythm, largely oblivious to the quiet revolution unfolding within its Christian community. But for Chloe, and for those who had embraced Paul's words, a new harmony was emerging, a testament to the enduring power of pastoral care and the transformative wisdom of the gospel. The challenges would undoubtedly persist, for human nature was complex and the world was ever present, but now, armed with Paul's enduring love and profound instruction, the believers in Corinth possessed the tools to navigate the complexities of faith and community. As night fell once more, casting its peaceful mantle over the city, Chloe looked out at the twinkling lights of Corinth, a city still coming to faith, and offered a prayer of deep gratitude, knowing that the seeds of unity, sown with such care and watered by divine wisdom, were finally taking root, promising a harvest of lasting connection and enduring peace. As Chloe's gaze lingered on the distant, shimmering lights of Corinth, a profound sense of peace settled within her, a quiet affirmation that the divine hand had indeed guided their steps through every challenge and triumph, weaving a tapestry of faith that was both delicate and incredibly strong. The city, once a swirling vortex of pagan rituals and mercantile ambition, now held within its heart a burgeoning community of believers, a testament to the tireless efforts of those who had sown seeds of truth with unwavering devotion and patient hands. Though Paul had departed, his journey carrying him to new horizons and fresh challenges, the legacy of his time in Corinth, and particularly the steadfast presence of Priscilla and Aquila, continued to resonate through the narrow, winding streets and within the humble homes where the nascent church gathered. Priscilla, her hands often stained with the rich, earthy dyes of the goat hair fabric, moved through her workshop with a practiced grace that spoke of years spent in purposeful labor, her movements economical and precise. The scent of cured leather and freshly cut cloth, mingled with the faint aroma of the oil lamps that now cast long, dancing shadows across the room, had become a comforting presence, a familiar perfume of industry and provision. She paused, her gaze drifting towards the small, meticulously organized pile of finished tent sections, each stitch a silent prayer, each seam a testament to the dedication she and Aquila poured into their craft. It was not merely a means of sustenance, though it certainly provided that, but a rhythm, a meditation that grounded them amidst the swirling currents of their ministry. The workshop, once a place of refuge and solitary toil, had transformed into a vibrant hub, a place where stories were shared, burdens lightened, and the quiet strength of faith was continually renewed. Aquila, his brow furrowed in concentration as he meticulously sharpened a cutting tool, looked up, a gentle smile softening the lines around his eyes as he met Priscilla's gaze. He understood, without a single word needing to be spoken, the quiet reflection that held her captive. They had built more than tents in Corinth, they had helped to build a spiritual home, a sanctuary for those who sought a different path in a city teeming with distractions and temptations. Their own journey had been one of unexpected turns, a forced exodus from the familiar comfort of Rome, yet in this bustling, sometimes bewildering, Greek city, they had found a deeper purpose, a calling that transcended the simple act of trade. The memory of Paul, his intense focus and tireless spirit, still permeated the very air of their workshop, a constant reminder of the profound impact one dedicated heart could have. He remembered the long nights spent discussing scripture, the shared meals, the quiet camaraderie that had blossomed between them, a bond forged in shared labor and a unified vision. The challenges had been immense, of course. Corinth was a city of stark contrasts, its wealth and sophistication coexisting with a pervasive moral laxity that often threatened to engulf the fledgling community of believers. The clash of cultures, the ingrained pagan practices, and the constant pressure to conform to the prevailing societal norms had tested their resilience time and again. Yet, through it all, Priscilla and Aquila had remained steadfast, their home a beacon of hospitality, their workshop a symbol of honest labor and self-sufficiency. They had taught not only by word but by example, demonstrating that faith was not an abstract concept but a living, breathing reality that permeated every aspect of life, from the meticulous stitching of a tent to the compassionate welcome extended to a stranger. One evening, as the last vestiges of twilight painted the western sky in hues of deep violet and fading rose, a young woman named Lydia, her face still bearing the faint traces of weariness from a long day at the loom, arrived at their door. She was one of the newer converts, drawn to the message of hope and redemption that had begun to ripple through the city. Priscilla welcomed her with a warm embrace, leading her to a comfortable stool near the hearth where a small, fragrant fire crackled merrily. The air was filled with the comforting aroma of a simple stew simmering gently, a scent that spoke of home and sustenance. "Priscilla, Aquila," Lydia began, her voice soft, yet tinged with a quiet anxiety. "I confess, sometimes the weight of it all feels heavy. The whispers in the marketplace, the scornful glances from those who cling to the old ways. It is difficult to stand firm." Priscilla listened patiently, her eyes reflecting a deep understanding. She knew intimately the struggles Lydia faced, the subtle pressures and overt hostilities that could chip away at one's resolve. She remembered the early days in Rome, the fear that had accompanied the emperor's decree, the wrenching decision to leave behind all that was familiar. "My dear Lydia," Priscilla said, her voice a soothing balm, "the path of faith is rarely an easy one, especially in a city like Corinth, where so many voices compete for our attention. But remember the words Paul often spoke, we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. Our strength does not come from ourselves, but from the one who called us." Aquila, who had been quietly mending a tear in a piece of canvas, nodded in agreement. "Indeed, Lydia. Think of the foundations we lay, brick by brick, stitch by stitch. Each act of kindness, each word of truth spoken, each moment of steadfastness in the face of opposition, these are the threads that weave the fabric of our community. It is a slow work, often unseen, but it is enduring." He gestured around the workshop, his hand encompassing the tools, the materials, the very air of honest labor. Just as a tent must be strong enough to withstand the winds and rains, so too must our faith be built on solid ground. Lydia's shoulders seemed to relax, a faint smile touching her lips. "Your words bring comfort, always. Sometimes, I forget the larger tapestry, seeing only the tangled threads before me. That is why we gather," Priscilla explained, her voice gentle, "to remind one another, to strengthen one another, to share the burdens and the joys. Our home, this workshop, it is not just a place for making tents, it is a place where the Spirit of Christ dwells, where weary souls can find rest and renewed purpose." She poured Lydia a small cup of warm, spiced wine, its aroma mingling with the stew. "We are a family, Lydia, bound by something far stronger than blood or earthly ties." The conversation flowed easily then, moving from the challenges of the day to the small victories, the quiet conversions, the growing network of house churches that were slowly, steadily, transforming the spiritual landscape of Corinth. They spoke of the upcoming gathering, a simple meal shared among believers, where stories would be exchanged, scripture read, and prayers offered for the city and for one another. It was in these moments of fellowship, in the shared intimacy of their faith, that the true resilience of the community revealed itself. Despite the external pressures, despite the internal disagreements that occasionally arose, the core of their unity remained, forged in the crucible of shared belief and mutual support. As the weeks turned into months, the quiet legacy of Priscilla and Aquila continued to deepen its roots in Corinth. Their reputation as skilled tent makers ensured a steady stream of customers, allowing them to remain self-sufficient and independent, never a burden on the fledgling church. This self-reliance, a principle Paul himself had championed, was a powerful testimony in a society where patronage and dependence were commonplace. Their workshop became a model not just of craftsmanship, but of Christian living, a place where honest work and fervent faith walked hand in hand. They welcomed new converts, patiently explaining the intricacies of the gospel, helping them to navigate the often confusing transition from pagan practices to a life centered on Christ. They taught them not only about salvation but about practical living, about the importance of integrity in business, about compassion for the poor, about the sanctity of marriage and family. Priscilla, in particular, with her keen intellect and profound understanding of Scripture, became a respected teacher, her insight sought after by both men and women. Her ability to articulate complex theological concepts with clarity and grace was a gift that greatly enriched the community. Aquila, with his steady demeanor and practical wisdom, offered guidance on matters of daily life, his calm presence a reassuring anchor in times of uncertainty. One afternoon, a merchant from Ephesus, a bustling port city across the Aegean, visited their workshop, seeking a custom-made tent for his travels. He was a man of considerable wealth and influence, accustomed to the finest goods and the most efficient service. As Aquila meticulously measured and discussed the specific requirements for the tent, Priscilla engaged the merchant in conversation, her natural warmth and genuine interest quickly putting him at ease. "You have a remarkable establishment here," the merchant remarked, his eye sweeping over the orderly workspace, the quality of the materials, and the evident skill of the artisans. Such diligence and precision are rare to find, even in Ephesus. Priscilla smiled. "We strive for excellence in all that we do, sir. It is a reflection of the principles we hold dear." The merchant, intrigued, pressed further. "And what principles are those, if I may ask?" "Most craftsmen I encounter are driven solely by profit." "We believe in serving a higher purpose," Priscilla replied, her voice soft but clear. "We believe that all our work, all our endeavors, should bring honor to the one true God, who has given us life and skill." She spoke of their faith not with proselytizing fervor, but with a quiet conviction that resonated deeply. She shared a brief, compelling account of the transformation they had witnessed in Corinth, the lives changed, the hope found. The merchant listened intently, his initial skepticism slowly giving way to a thoughtful curiosity. He had heard whispers of this new sect in various cities, but he had never encountered its adherents with such an intimate and authentic presentation. He left that day not only with an order for a finely crafted tent, but with a seed of curiosity planted in his heart, a curiosity that would eventually lead him to seek out the believers in Ephesus. It was a subtle, yet profound, example of the universality of the gospel, spreading not through grand pronouncements in the agora, but through the quiet, consistent witness of ordinary lives lived with extraordinary faith. As the seasons turned, and the olive trees on the hillsides around Corinth bore their fruit, and the grapes ripened on the vines, the community of believers continued to grow, a vibrant tapestry woven from diverse threads, Jews and Gentiles, slaves and free, rich and poor. Priscilla and Aquila were often at the heart of it all, their home a constant hub of activity, a place where the weary found rest, the hungry were fed, and the seeking found truth. They embodied the very essence of pastoral care, not as ordained leaders in a hierarchical structure, but as loving, dedicated shepherds of the flock, their lives a living sermon. There were moments of profound joy, like the baptisms performed in the cool, clear waters of a nearby stream, where new believers shed their old lives and emerged renewed, their faces alight with a radiant hope. There were also moments of sorrow, of course, when illness or loss touched a member of their community, and Priscilla and Aquila would be there, offering comfort, prayer, and practical support, their presence a steadying force in times of grief. They understood that faith was not merely a set of doctrines, but a deeply personal journey, fraught with both triumphs and tribulations, and that true leadership lay in walking alongside others, sharing their burdens and celebrating their victories. One particularly serene evening, as the silver disk of the moon cast a soft, ethereal glow over the city, illuminating the ancient temples and the humble dwellings alike, Priscilla and Aquila sat together on the small courtyard of their home, the gentle night air carrying the faint, distant sounds of the sea. The day's work was done, the tools put away, the last of the evening's visitors having departed with hearts full of renewed hope. Priscilla leaned her head against Aquila's shoulder, a sigh of contentment escaping her lips. "It has been a long journey, my dear," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper, from the bustling streets of Rome to this vibrant, sometimes chaotic, city. "But I would not trade a single moment of it." Aquila gently stroked her hair, his gaze fixed on the shimmering expanse of stars above. "Nor I, my love. Who could have imagined that our expulsion would lead us to such a profound purpose, to be instruments in the hands of the Almighty, helping to build His kingdom in this corner of the world?" He paused, a reflective smile playing on his lips. Paul often spoke of the unseen hand, guiding our steps, even when the path seemed unclear. He was right, was he not? He was, Priscilla affirmed, her voice filled with a quiet reverence. And His Spirit, His unwavering dedication, it lives on in us, in every believer who walks these streets, in every tent we mend, in every word of comfort we offer. The seeds He planted, watered by our hands, continue to blossom. She thought of the many individuals whose lives they had touched, the quiet transformations, the gradual unfolding of faith in hearts that had once been closed. The young Lydia, now a confident and articulate teacher herself, sharing her testimony with new converts. The former idol worshipper, now a fervent evangelist, his voice ringing with the joy of his newfound faith. The elderly widow, once desolate, now finding solace and community within the fellowship. The city of Corinth, with its imposing temples and its bustling markets, continued its ceaseless rhythm, yet within its very fabric, a quiet revolution was unfolding, a gentle spread of faith that was transforming lives from the inside out. The grand pronouncements of the pagan priests, the clamor of the merchants, the political machinations of the Roman authorities, all seemed to fade into the background when set against the enduring power of a simple, unwavering belief, nurtured in humble homes and workshops. Priscilla and Aquila, the Tentmakers, had not sought fame or recognition. Their reward lay in the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived, a ministry faithfully executed, and a legacy of love and service that would continue to ripple through generations. They were the unsung heroes, the steadfast anchors, the quiet architects of a community that was truly coming to faith. Their story was not one of dramatic miracles or grand pronouncements, but of diligent work, unwavering hospitality, and a profound, abiding love for God and for their fellow human beings. As the moon climbed higher, casting its tranquil light over the sleeping city, a profound stillness descended upon the courtyard. The distant sounds of the sea seemed to soften, becoming a gentle lullaby. Priscilla and Aquila remained there, entwined in a shared silence, their hearts full, their spirits at peace. The world around them seemed to quiet its ceaseless clamor, allowing the gentle spread of faith to settle like a soft, comforting blanket over the ancient land, promising a harvest of lasting connection and enduring peace. The air grew cool, carrying the faint, sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine, a quiet benediction upon the city and its faithful, as the world drifted into a profound and peaceful slumber. The first rays of dawn, painting the eastern sky in hues of rose and gold, found Paul already stirring within the humble dwelling attached to Priscilla and Aquila's workshop, his thoughts already turning towards the day's labor and the boundless work of the Spirit. He rose with a quiet grace, his movements practiced and economical, careful not to disturb the still sleeping forms of his companions in the small, shared space, for even in the early hours, the city of Corinth began to hum with a nascent energy, a prelude to its daily, vibrant symphony. He slipped out into the cool morning air, the scent of jasmine from the previous night still faintly lingering, now mingling with the earthy aroma of damp stone and the distant, briny tang of the sea, a constant reminder of Corinth's maritime heart. His hands, though skilled in the intricate weaving of goat hair and linen, were also accustomed to the quiet solace of prayer, and he found a secluded corner in the small, sun-dappled courtyard, where a single, gnarled olive tree offered dappled shade, its ancient branches whispering secrets to the nascent breeze. Here, amidst the gentle chirping of awakening sparrows and the distant clatter of a baker's cart on the cobbled street, Paul poured out his heart, not with fervent pleas, but with a deep, abiding gratitude for the steadfastness of his new friends and the burgeoning faith he witnessed daily in this complex, often challenging city. He reflected on the faces of those who had recently embraced the message, their eyes alight with a newfound hope, their lives slowly but surely transforming under the gentle, persistent guidance of the Holy Spirit, a testament to the power of a truth that transcended all cultural and societal divides. Later that morning, as the sun climbed higher, casting sharper shadows across the workshop, the rhythmic thwack of mallets against leather and the soft shush of fabric being stretched filled the air, creating a comforting cadence that spoke of diligent effort and shared purpose. Priscilla, her dark hair neatly braided and tucked away, worked with a focused intensity, her nimble fingers expertly stitching together panels of sturdy canvas, her brow furrowed in concentration yet occasionally softening into a gentle smile when Aquila offered a quiet word or passed her a tool without needing to be asked. Their unspoken communication, born of years of shared labor and profound affection, was a beautiful thing to behold, a silent testament to the strength found in partnership, both in their trade and in their shared devotion to the way. Their unspoken communication, born of years of shared labor and profound affection, was a beautiful thing to behold, a silent testament to the strength found in partnership, both in their trade and in their shared devotion to the way. Aquila, a man of quiet strength and thoughtful demeanor, carefully inspected a finished tent flap, his calloused hands tracing the seams, ensuring every stitch was secure, every grommet firmly set, for their reputation as master tent-makers was not merely a matter of livelihood but also a reflection of their commitment to excellence in all things, a practical demonstration of their faith. He would occasionally glance towards Paul, who worked alongside them, his own hands moving with practiced efficiency, his mind, however, often miles away, wrestling with a theological point or composing a letter in his head, yet always present, always engaged in the shared work, never aloof or detached. The workshop, filled with the earthy scent of new fabric, the faint aroma of leather, and the occasional whiff of wood smoke from a nearby brazier, became a sanctuary, a place where the sacred and the mundane intertwined seamlessly, where the hands that crafted tents also helped to weave the fabric of a new community. One afternoon, as the heat of the day began to wane, casting long, golden shadows